Hey, what's going on, guys? Crobat for the win, Danza here today, and I'll be your host for Around the Rhyhorn. I'm privileged to be here today with three panelists on today's show, Mr. Monotooi, Mr. Lucky Lad, and Mr. Dallas Boy 1992. Introduce yourselves.
How's it going, GBA channel? I am Dallas Boy 1992. I was here weeks 1 and 2, and I'm happy to be back again!
Hi everyone, my name's Monotooi, and I would just like to give a thank you to you, Danza, for properly pronouncing my name, as no one else does.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Lucky from LuckyLadTV, and I would like to thank Mr. Crobat for the win for having me on as well, and also for pronouncing Monotooi's name correctly.
Alrighty, awesome. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us this week. So here's our introduction for the day. I'm going to say a phrase that relates to the GBA this week, and you guys are welcome to respond however you can. This week's word is happiness. Let's hear your thoughts.
There are two moves that are dependent on a Pokemon's happiness in the Pokemon game. Return and Frustration. Due to Stoutland's happiness being at a low 70 instead of 255, what it should have been for maximum power, Miguel wound up losing due to the trade mechanics of happiness, and Return not being at maximum power like it should have been. Happiness can also affect the way a coach plays mentally as well. If the coach can keep a happy mood and a positive mindset, everything should be fine with him.
Also, I would like to point out that even if Miguel had run Frustration on his Stoutland instead of Return, the base power would have only been at 74, therefore there was no way it would have been able to kill the Dragalge.
Yeah, it has a base power of 28 when you're doing Return, and has a base power of 74 when you're doing Frustration, so either way, you're still a solid 28 points behind the maximum power. And that 28 points means a lot at level 50 when you're trying to kill something with it. And when you factor in stuff like stab, it just gets a bigger and bigger differential. So people that are claiming that running Frustration would have helped him, it would have helped him, but it wouldn't have solved the issue.
Yeah, that's true. Certainly. Do you guys have any closing remarks about
Run Facade, not Frustration or Return.
Or maybe run Double Edge.
Question of the day, does Stoutland learn Double Edge?
We're gonna learn that right now.
Alrighty, and then we'll close the segment.
I know he doesn't learn Body Slam, which really bothers me because he looks like the type of Mon that could Body Slam something.
Yep. Stoutland does not learn Double Edge. It learns Double Team, but that's not allowed.
Dang it!
So there you go. Alrighty.
My bad.
It's gonna be Return or Facade, as Lucky said.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so after that introduction, let's discuss the first word. You guys are welcome to have a brief debate, discussion, whatever you want about the two topics I've chosen. Here we go. Dan has started the year 4-0. I want to know your thoughts on his record. Has he been playing well? Has he been just playing easy competition? Has he been lucky? No pun intended. What do you guys think?
I was watching Dan's match against Crimson Seabad, coach of the Detroit Steel Wings, and the way Dan played was very intelligently. He didn't let Chansey get trapped by Gothitelle for a while, which was a very good play because as soon as that thing gets trapped, it's gone. And even when it did get trapped, he was able to at least wear down the Gothitelle to the point where Gothitelle had to faint. Let me put it this way. Dan has an extremely good team. I think Dan's success is the result of a combination of his disgusting wall core between Mega Sableye and Chansey, as well as his own ability to play. He didn't allow his Chansey to get trapped by Gothitelle for quite a while, and overall he kept his win conditions, he kept playing smart, he didn't make overly aggressive plays, and then when Crimson screwed up and let his Rhyperior go down to Rotom Wash, Dan was just able to take advantage and gain the upper hand.
Shadow Tag's an intense thing because if you got a bad matchup, you're screwed for obvious reasons, but people are hating on Dan for his defensive wall core, and as Mono put it, it's disgusting because it's so bulky, but to the same extent, you can't knock somebody for having bulk because he doesn't play the game focusing on stall, he just plays the game focusing on being able to take the hits.
I feel like Dan has had it pretty easy this season so far. He's had to face Crimson twice, Geo, and Shady. And Shady is the only one of those battlers who has a record above 500, and Dan wound up winning that match because of a little bit of hacks in his favor. True, Dan has played very well to the start of the season, and I'll give him props for his 4-0 record, but when your opponents have a combined record of 5-7, and you have Tup who has a 1-3 record himself, it's a pretty easy start to the season in my opinion. But I guess we'll see how Dan fares further into the season. Week 6 is where things start to pick up in difficulty as Dan faces John at the New Orleans Pelipers, followed by Shady, who may or may not be out for a little bit of blood after the first matchup, and then Cooper in Week 8. So that's a pretty tricky 3-game stretch for Dan, but we'll see how he survives that.
Yeah, one of the things you gotta remember is that Cooper got rid of his Lucario and picked up Nidoking, and Nidoking does a lot better against Dan's team than Lucario does because Lucario has the priority, but it doesn't have much of anything else, like can't touch Sableye, and it's not gonna do that much to Chansey in the end, whereas Nidoking does a number against Sableye. It probably, I don't know this for sure, but it probably 2 shots with Earth Power if Dan isn't able to get up a Calm Mind. And if it's physical, it probably 2 shots a Chansey with either Poison Jab or Earthquake or something like that.
I think Focus Blast is a 3 KO, don't quote me on that.
Also, the common mix set of Nidoking handles it really well. Like, Life Orb Superpower does a decent amount of damage.
How about that one?
Yeah,
Life Orb Superpower combo to another move would probably take out a Chansey.
Yep, Superpower from even just an uninvested Nidoking does 47 to 55, so
that's a lot.
Yeah, add a little more attack, maybe drop a little bit of speed, and you're looking at a 2-hit KO.
Certainly. I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, a mixed Nidoking might be pretty beneficial for Cooper in the future.
Yeah, it's one of those Pokemon, and I know that DK Nappy says this a lot, it has such terrible 4-move syndrome, where it has, you can only give 4 moves to a Pokemon, but when you have a Pokemon like Nidoking, it has like 12 different moves that you want to use.
Yeah, that thing is 4-move slot syndrome in a nutshell.
Yeah, that might be true, but at least in the GBA, you can have a little bit more of a gauge on what you would want.
Yeah, because you know what your opponent's bringing.
Yeah. Instead of 12 move slot syndrome, maybe Nidoking has 5 or 6 move slot syndrome.
Yeah.
Alrighty, any final remarks about Dan?
Nope.
Go check out his interview.
That's shameless advertising.
Anyways. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, next topic. John took the first match against Cooper this week. Cooper played a very offensive game, which is very atypical for him. I don't know if this week was an experiment or what. Do you think his experimentation with offense lost him the game? Let's hear your thought.
I think it definitely did. I mean, he brought a Jolly Choice Scarfed Aggron. If that's not an experimentation, I don't really know what is. Because I bet you're not going to find that on Smogon. The other part about it is that it was his first week using Nidoking, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
I believe you're right.
It is the case.
And if you think about it, it's like having a new player on a sports team. You gotta get used to how they work in conjunction with the rest of all of your players. And when you're going up somebody like John, who has, for one thing, he has Mega Venusaur, which is a giant fat bitch. But the other thing about him is that John has a really, really varied team. Like, he has a lot of different threats. So bringing a really offensive team against a really varied team may not work out that well. It would probably have been better if Cooper brought some bulk, but he really seemed to bring primarily just straight attacking power. If you look at it from an objective view, his bulkiest Pokemon on his team would have been the Aggron, but it wasn't because he wasn't running it that way. So you have to kind of take into account that it very easily could have been an experiment.
I personally believe that Cooper's offense did not lose him the game. The fact that he lost his Charizard X very early on in the game due to an excellent prediction on John's part by going for the Scald when the Zard X went for the Roost, and the fact that Cooper let Raikou set up a plethora of Calm Minds, that pretty much severely hurt Cooper this week. Granted, Cooper managed to pull back some differential in the late game with Nidoking, but after Zapdos and Whimsicott pretty much wet the bed, and the tailwind for Nidoking had petered out, Cooper's team was pretty darn vulnerable to Scarf Crocodile, and Ray Lewis pretty much swept in the late game.
Something else I would like to point out is Cooper's Zapdos set, which I believe was U-Turn, Roost, Thunder Wave, and then some other move. Especially looking at the team that John brought, I don't really see any reason to not run Volt Switch.
I'm also not entirely sure why he was running the T-Wave, just because John's team isn't that fast. With the exception of something like Raikou, which can't be paralyzed in the first place, John's team is not slow, but it's not that fast either, so I really would have thought that Toxic would have been a smarter move choice than Thunderwave.
Definitely, Lucky Lad. Granted, John does carry the Empoleon, the Mega Venusaur, whom are both immune to Toxic. Toxic could have definitely laid a bit of damage onto John's team.
Yep, something else I want to point out is thinking back, Cooper's Zapdos' fourth move was Air Cutter, which
why?
It kind of makes sense for the Venusaur, but I have a calc up right here. Uninvested Air Cutter from a Zapdos does 36.8 to 44.5% to a Mega Venusaur that is fully physically defensive.
Not bad, not bad.
So even if it's max physically defensive, it's not going to 2-hit KO still, and that gives John plenty of time to recover up with Synthesis or get off a leech sheet or something.
Wouldn't it have made a lot more sense for him to run Drill Peck and a physical Zapdos? Because, I mean, Air Cutter is 55 base power. That's really low.
How about Choice Banded Brave Bird?
Does
I
it
don't
learn?
think Zapdos gets Brave Bird.
Doesn't get Brave Bird? Oh,
It doesn't get Brave Bird, but it gets Drill Peck, and that way you're not taking recoil. It also learns Sky Attack, apparently.
That would have been an interesting set, actually.
Power Herb
Power-
Sky Attack.
Yeah, Power of Sky Attack. I think
Also,
we're giving him
Maybe
ideas.
interesting, but
Something else I think I want to...
add on would be a Hawlucha, and that's on Nitz's team.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, do we have any last remarks about Cooper and John this week?
Nope, I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, seemingly so.
Yep, one more thing I'd like to add is John definitely played smarter, at least than he did against Shady. Like, he didn't let his win condition go down to one move. He didn't just sack it off when he had other switch-ins. And that's about it. With John's team, all he has to really do is play safe and play smart, and I think he's going to do alright.
And keep his win cons alive.
Alrighty. Okay, next up is Be a Coach. Pretend for a moment that you guys are coaches. I want you to think about what you would do next week if you were the coach that I asked you to pose as. Ready?
Ready.
Alrighty. Monotooi, you're starting. If you were Steve, how would you beat Miguel this week?
Now, it's no secret that Steve is, first of all, 0-4, and that Miguel is one of the top competitors in the GBA, and is a huge threat to anybody he's playing inside his division and outside of his division. Steve, on the other hand, is currently 0-4 and has yet to really prove himself as a playoff threat this season, but that doesn't mean that there's no way he can win, and these are the things I think he can do to win. He recently picked up Lucario due to free agency, dropping Donphan, which, while it does force Landorus into more of a defensive role, kind of like Season 2, Lucario is definitely an excellent offensive Pokemon, especially against Miguel's team. The right coverage can really hurt Miguel's team. The set that I came up with that I think works the best would be E-Speed, Earthquake, Iron Tail, and Swords Dance. Looking at Miguel's team, there isn't too much of a need to run close combat. Sure, it hits Hydreigon and it hits Mega Lopunny, but they both get outsped anyway. And another thing about Miguel's team is he has no ghost types, so if he can weaken Miguel's team enough, he can set up a Swords Dance, he's going to be able to sweep with E-Speed. And the next thing is he needs to keep Suicune and Arcanine healthy. They are the only things that can take on Mega Lopunny and Victini well. Landorus Therian gets hit hard by Glaciate from Victini and Ice Punch from Lopunny, so Suicune and Arcanine are definitely going to need to take hits. I'm expecting Miguel to bring Special Victini just because, again, he has the Arcanine, and who knows, I kind of foresee Miguel using Steve's Season 2 strats with Victini, maybe putting on Thunder to hit Suicune, but again, Suicune can take it, and Thunder is not the most accurate move, so yeah. Also, the last thing I think Steve needs to do is to get rid of Miguel's Chestnut so that his Crawdaunt can sweep his team. It's not going to outspeed many things, and his team is going to need to be weakened a little bit, but Crawdaunt is a huge threat to Miguel's team. Nothing really wants to switch in on a Life Orb knockoff, and whatever does, like Florges, just gets OHKO'd by Crabhammer afterwards. That's what I think Steve needs to do in order to win.
Alrighty. Lucky Lad, if you were Hank, how would you rebound and beat Mulvone this week?
So, one of the things that people keep pinning on Hank is that he relies so much on his Mega Pinsir, but against Mulvone, Mega Pinsir's actually, it doesn't do that much. It hits the Keldeo and it hits the Gallade, but that's kind of it. I really think that the win condition that Hank needs to focus on this week is actually his Infernape, because Weavile, which has 9 kills already, that's 2.25 per week, and has actually died 0 times, gets OHKO'd by a Mach Punch, and even if it's sashed, you can double Mach Punch, and Weavile can't touch Infernape. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure a Choice Banded Earthquake from an Infernape would take out the Mega Manectric. Shady had him a couple seasons ago, and he's really fast and he hits really hard, but he's also really frail. And looking at the rest of each of their squads, you have to plan to be able to defend yourselves against threats, and Mega Pinsir just doesn't do that well against Mulvone's team. I'm sure he's going to bring it because it's really powerful in it, and it's debatably his best Pokemon, but to the same extent, I don't think he's going to have to rely on it as much to try and set up and sweep or something like that when most of Molvone's looming characters, the ones that have been doing the most damage so far, have a good matchup against Mega Pinsir. So I'd say keep the Infernape alive and be careful with it and use it wisely. But other than that, I think that Hank's team actually has one of the better matchups against the Loudreds than most of the other people in the GBA.
Okay, thank you for those remarks. Alright, Dallas, if you were top, how would you beat Dan next week?
Well, Dan's success has revolved around the use of his Chansey Mega Sableye Core, which has been seen in the past, and it is very disgusting. With a combination of Play Rough and Knockoff, Azumarill has the ability to dispatch pretty much both of them. Play Rough nails Sableye with super effective damage, and Knockoff to get rid of Chansey's Violite. And just in case if there is the chance of a burn, which is coming from either Sableye's Will-O-Wisp or Volcarona's Flame Body, Azumarill should probably run a Lumberry to avoid getting burned by both of those. And to help Azumarill with threats such as Rotom Wash and Nidoqueen that could hinder the Azumarill, he could run an Assault Vest Slowking to sponge those hits and pretty much deal some nice damage back.
Okay. Thank you guys for sharing your thoughts about coaches this week. Alright, I think Be a Coach is over. Next round is up. Out of Bounds. I do think this is probably one of the most anticipated ones this week. So, apparently, Stoutland doesn't really like Miguel. Unknown to Miguel and his PK Hexer, happiness resets during trades. Even though the PK Hexer set his Stoutland's happiness to 255, it reverted back to 60 after the trade, which lost Miguel the match with return. A couple of death threats were even sent to the PK Hexer, even though it wasn't his fault. My gosh. Is this really some big scandal, or is it just a little thing to learn from? Is it a big mistake?
I'm not gonna lie, some of those death threats were from me.
What?
Get out. Just get out.
I just want you to know. I just want you to know. I'm kidding. I didn't send any death threats because, I mean, it's a perfect example of it's an honest mistake. It's not something that a PK Hexer would do on purpose. It's not something that anybody would do on purpose because the whole point of the GBA is for everything to be fair. That's all I want to say on that. My part in this segment comes at the end.
Alright, I personally believe that this isn't a big scandal at all. It's just a little bit of a learning experience for Miguel to address, and maybe for the future, possibly power save over some Kelsey Berries or grow them if you don't use them, and that should quickly help boost Stoutland's happiness if that's an issue. And personally, this one loss should not affect Miguel's playoff chances at all, especially in a division where his rivals have a grand total of 1 win. And Miguel is definitely one of the best coaches in the league, and he'll rebound from this loss, it's guaranteed.
I would just like to state my belief on the matter here, and I have strong reason to believe that Stoutland's happiness decreased because he was faced with some sort of abuse from Miguel.
I've heard that.
Well, just as an example, I was watching a live stream from Magnitude, the creator of the league. So I had a little bit of a conversation with Miguel during the live stream that Magnitude decided to host. And I asked Miguel if he had done any mistreatment towards Waffles, which is the name of the Stoutland. And at first he was like, no, of course not. No. And then later on, I heard him quietly mumble to himself, well, one time he stole my food, so I kicked him a little bit. I mean, I don't know what kind of laws they have in fucking Afghanistan or wherever his home country is, but that shit does not fly here in America. You hear about Michael Vick, Miguel? He fucking had 2 puppies go after each other, and he almost got, I don't know what, he was gone, 4 years? 5 years?
I think 2.
I thought he got the electric chair.
I don't know, the electric chair. I don't know, man. He might have. I haven't heard from him.
I mean, I don't see him anymore, so you never know. Or maybe he built his own electric chair because he wanted to turn into the Flash and it didn't work.
After that season finale last night, maybe.
Yeah, man.
Alright, so I just have one public announcement to Miguel. I understand maybe customs are different where you live. Maybe you had a hard childhood. You learned differently from the rest of us here in America. But dogs, they have feelings. And because of the way you treated him, that happiness feeling was decreased by about 75%.
Yeah, it obviously had nothing to do with trades.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, and it definitely wasn't the PK Hexer's fault.
I think you're right about that.
I would like to formally go on record and bring back the ever so important factor of run Facade rather than Frustration or Return because it's a better move.
Though to be fair, Facade wouldn't have killed the Dragalge in that match.
No, but to the same extent, it's like especially in the GBA, getting burns or toxics or paralysis on your opponent is really important because there are a lot of really fast, really hard-hitting mons that you want to try and burn or something like that. And if you run Facade and it's not even on a Guts Pokemon, then most people don't see it coming because they expect the Returner, they expect the Body Slammer, they expect the Double Edge. Whereas if you burn a Stoutland and it has Facade, that's more powerful than Double Edge or Return or Body Slam. It's got 140 base power if you're burned.
It's true.
And then essentially, since it doesn't have guts, it cuts in half to 70.
No. Facade ignores that.
It completely ignores burn?
Yeah, Facade ignores, yes.
Facade completely ignores burn.
I didn't know that.
That's why I love running Facade, because it ignores burn. It's like automatic guts for, well, not automatic guts because it doubles in power, but it ignores the attack drop of burn.
It's essentially like, if you get status, you're giving Stoutland a physical boom burst.
Well, I think maybe we gave Miguel some ideas here. Who knows?
I'm telling you, you gotta run Facade.
Maybe.
Alright.
Did you say AD?
I said maybe.
Oh, I thought you said AD as an attack damage.
I was thinking of athletic director.
I was thinking about the year.
Yo, acronyms are not our strong suit.
No. Here in Around the Rhyhorn, we don't know acronyms any. LOL, OMG, Rafflecopter, we don't know them.
Hashtag Anno Domini. Fear the Lord.
Yo, real talk, the first time I heard Rafflecopter, I thought it was just one really long acronym.
And it wasn't.
Nah.
Nope.
It was a sad day.
And this definitely relates to the big scandal in the GBA, so.
Hey, you said we go out of bounds in this.
We do go out of bounds, and this is very related.
Miguel went out of bounds of the law when he fucking punched his dog.
Yeah, Miguel, don't punch your dog.
I have a dog, and I love her very much.
Alright, that is good that you do. I just want, just in case anyone out there thinks we're being serious about punching a virtual Stoutland, Miguel doesn't actually abuse real animals, so please don't spam his ask box. Please don't comment that he abuses animals. He doesn't abuse real animals, only virtual ones.
Yeah, I mean, and there's no laws against abusing virtual animals, and that's in any state.
Even in the US.
Yeah,
Every
even
match,
in the US.
Every match in the GBA we're abusing animals.
Yeah. Yo, that's true.
We'll save that for another day.
He is gonna have a word for us.
Do you know how many Pokemon I have deleted from existence because they weren't perfect?
Let's move on to the lightning round. Alright, lightning round. You will both have 30 seconds to make a stand or take a stance, agree, disagree, whatever with the statement I make. I must emphasize, these are not my opinions, but rather topics I think people would be interested to listen to. Let's jump in. Alright, I'm gonna get my timer up. You guys, like I said, about 30 seconds. Alright, first topic. The Sawsbucks lost largely due to the momentum they lost in the shift to Showdown. Go.
I do not agree. I think if you're a good enough coach, and I'm not saying this against magnitude, I'm saying this against the idea of the momentum, I think you would be able to pick right back up where you left off.
So you got 15 seconds.
I don't need it. I stated my case. I paid my nickel. I don't need to say no more.
We charge 6 cents.
Alright, fine.
Alright, good. Ding ding. Actually, it's gonna... Alright. Time's up. Next.
Yes, Steve lost some momentum, I personally believe. After the DC, Gio got a little bit of the hint of what Steve wanted to bring to the match, and in the Showdown match, he wasn't surprised by a few things that Steve had to bring. If there was a DC, who knows what would have happened? Maybe Steve pulls one out of the bag. Maybe Steve gets his first win of the season. Who knows what could have happened if that DC didn't occur? Yeah, I pretty much stated my case.
Alright, well, we've got a 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Next.
I disagree. I think the shift to Showdown didn't interfere with Steve's play at all. In my personal experience, I think playing on Showdown is honestly much easier than playing over Wi-Fi, which doesn't make sense when you first think of it because, you know, obviously it's the same team, the same Pokemon and everything. But everything is given to you in a picture on Showdown. You know how much HP every other Pokemon has. You know exactly how much HP you have. You know exactly what percentage of HP you have, you know, yeah, fucking tits.
Time's up. Okay, I'll give you an additional 5 seconds.
Overall, I think the transition from Wi-Fi to Showdown didn't interfere with Steve at all.
Okay. Alright, next topic. Nips should not have won this week. He got the win only due to hacks. Go.
No, that statement is incorrect. Nips would have won regardless. He's a good battler. He's gotten better every week. And there's people that say he only won because of hacks. Hacks is a part of Pokemon. You can't complain about something that is an integral part of the game that you accept when you decide to play competitively. It's gonna happen. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to deal with it.
And we're just on time because time's up. I'd just like to emphasize one more time, these are not my opinions, they're just topics to discuss.
No, man! I'm taking this personally!
Okay, next.
Personally, I'd like to say personally, I believe that Nick did win this game because of facts. There was very notably, in that last turn, that the Amoonguss that Hank had got paralyzed in the last turn after living the Alakazam Side Shock. Hank knew that Amoonguss could live Alakazam Sid, but that Haxton last moment wound up biting Hank in the butt, and Nips pretty much got his first win of the season because of that. Granted, Nips has gotten better over the season, but he won that game because of Hax.
Time's up.
I'm like, do you hear the bell?
I mean, I let you guys get your last words out. I'm not going to cut you off completely. This isn't live. This isn't live TV. This isn't public television we're talking about. I mean,
This is Around the Rhyhorn.
If you guys know any TV producers, let's try to get this on TV. But maybe I'll call Judge Judy later. I'll see what she can do.
Well.
Okay.
Alright, so I have to agree that Hank did win primarily due to Hax, just because the way Hank played toward the end of the game, he knew exactly what he had to do to win. Get rid of the Snorlax, break the stash on the Alakazam, then finish him off with a Amoonguss. The monkey wrench in that plan was the paralysis on a Amoonguss. So, more or less, and statistically, it was more than likely he was going to get paralyzed because of the lack of paralysis earlier.
Time's up. Okay, now, next thought. Cooper actually played very well against John, and the match was fairly close. Go.
He was having too much fun. He wasn't playing, like, properly. He wasn't playing the way that he should have been. He played well, but he wasn't playing to the full extent of his abilities. I think John played better and prepared better. I don't think Cooper deserved to win that game. I think it went how it should have.
Time's up. Alrighty, next.
Yeah, I don't think that Cooper played the best game he could have. Not that he played bad at all, but letting a Raikou set up 3 Calm Mind is just unacceptable. Cooper should have either used Encore with Mimscott, provided he had that to lock Raikou in on Calm Mind, then go to Nidoking, or kept his Ardex around a little bit longer. And from there, it would have been a little bit easier for Cooper. But John pretty much outplayed him this whole game. I personally believe, and nothing against Cooper, but John pretty much would have won it anyway.
Alright, time's up. Next.
Yeah, I agree that Cooper didn't play terribly, but when you're going up against an opponent like John, you have to play the best that you can, you know? And like we talked about earlier, the Zapdos set was questionable against John's team, but for the most part, all I really have to say is Cooper didn't play bad, but he didn't play good enough to break through John's team. And he didn't really plan how I think he should have planned in order to win.
Alrighty, time's up. Alright, next thought. Because we know Shady is going to bring Regirock, he said that multiple times, Regirock will get at least 2 KOs this week against Nips. Go.
Regirock is straight power, I'm not gonna lie. I'm also hoping to... I just interviewed Nips. That went up on Monday. I'm not exactly sure when this goes up, but another shameless plug. But one of the things that we were talking about is that Regirock actually matches up horribly against Nips' team. He has 3 fighting types, and I don't think Regirock's going to do that well. I think it's going to set up rocks and then probably die.
Okay, time's up. Next.
Nips has way too much to handle Regirock on his team. He has Mega Altaria, which is easily a massive threat, Jirachi, Magnezone, Blaziken, Roserade, Quagsire, Hawlucha, Cobalion, Focus Blast, Alakazam, all of which I can hit Regirock for super effective damage, and possibly at least 2 KO it.
No, is there anything on his team that's actually like weak to rock?
No, nothing is weak to rock, actually. I looked at that earlier.
Wow.
Alright, you guys used up Dallas's time. Wow, time's up. Dallas, do you have any additional words to say?
None.
Alright, next up.
That's why I jumped in. I kind of had a feeling he was done, but I apologize.
That is okay. Alright, I will dock your time down to 15 seconds since you already started. You may continue.
I don't think Regirock is going to get kills necessarily in this match, but I do think it can serve as a very good supportive role. high jump kick from a Jolly Howlucha only does half to a specially defensive Regirock. So without special investment, it doesn't 2-hit KO after leftovers. So in that time, he could easily get off a Toxic, T-Wave, Stealth Rocks.
Alright, time's up. Alrighty. And the last one, which we did touch upon a little bit earlier. Hank's Mega Pinsir will drive a train and will lead Hank to victory over the Cincinnati Lowrids. Alright, gotta reset this to 30 and go.
Yo, Hank's Mega Pinsir is gonna do... The only thing I really see it doing is taking out either the Gallade or the Keldeo. I don't think it's gonna do much else. It really does not match up well against Molvone's team. He could run it with Earthquake to try and take on the Mega Manectric, but Mega Manectric outspeeds. So it's not really gonna work.
And time is up. Next.
Mega Pinsir, as we all know, is a threat in the format, but seeing as Molvone has Mega Manectric, Talonflame, and Gliscor, I don't see Mega Pinsir pulling off a sweep, let alone getting too much work put in. Weavile can also revenge kill with Ice Shard, and Fortress can eat a few hits as well if needed, but I don't see Mega Pinsir pulling off an endgame sweep unless Molvone's team is heavily weakened, but I personally believe that Molvone actually has a bit of a team advantage this week. We'll see how things pan out.
Alright, time is up. Next.
A
go.
+2 Adamant return from a Pinsir has a good chance to one-shot a max defensive Gliscor. And that is just... And the thing is, unless Gliscor is running Stone Edge, it doesn't really have a way to hit back. And the same goes with Fortress. Unless Fortress is running decent attack investment, Rock Slide is not going to OHKO Mega Pinsir. And again, Adamant +2 does... or at least can OHKO a Fortress. And I'm saying +2 because against his team, Fortress, Gliscor, and Gastrodon can become setup fodder.
Alright.
Bruh, you gotta run Facade. You can't run Return. We saw how that went.
It's pronounced Fakeade.
Alright, we'll have that debate next week.
Alright. Bring it on.
Alright, so that's all I have for the lightning round, and that will conclude our 4th edition, Season 4, Week 4 of Around the Rhyhorn. We're on a 6-day, 23.5-hour break. I've put a straw poll in the description to vote on the panelists you most agree with. Thank you for listening, guys, and peace out.
See you next time.
Don't forget to check out the GBA website for some great articles.
Do you know how many Pokemon I have deleted from existence because they weren't perfect?